This is the story of the Russian sleep experiment that took a turn that nobody could have predicted. As with all secret government experiments, any evidence is very well hid. So whether you think this story is real or whether you don't, that's for you to decide by the end of the video. In the late 1940s, scientists in Russia decided to test the effects of extreme sleep deprivation. The experiment began. They selected 5 prisoners and shut them into a sealed small room and then exposed them to a gas stimulant to keep them awake. Very little happened during the first 5 days, other than subjects started to discuss issues of a much deeper emotional nature. As the sleep deprivation gradually wore down their social reserves, it was about this time that their behaviour took a turn for the worst. The subjects became paranoid and stopped communicating with each other, convinced they were trapped in the experiment through each other's treachery. They turned their backs on one another, whispering strange, inaudible things into the microphones. 9 days passed before the first man began to scream. No! No! He ran crazed up and down the small chamber until you could hear his voice become strained and to the point where you could barely make out his screams. The other captives didn't raise an eyebrow, rather reaching their own bizarre epiphanies of their own accord. 2 captives silently tore pages from books, defecated upon them and pasted them over the glass so the researchers could no longer see inside the room. The screaming stopped and the scientists grew increasingly worried. Only the oxygen monitors indicated any sign of life. At this point they decided to approach, broadcasting this message into the cell. We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom. The subjects remained silent, except for one of them, whose voice quavered, "We no longer want to be freed." Warily, the scientists entered the cell. What greeted them was a vision of unparalleled horror. Food lay untouched, but the subjects' mouths were bloody. Each of them had chunks of flesh and sinew torn from their bodies. Great gory chunks ripped away from the bone. Many wounds indicated that they had been self-inflicted. Some were so eviscerated that their ribs were clearly visible, and the floor was a mess of internal body parts and blood and sinew, and slowly congealed blood. The subjects were silent and still until the gas was turned off. Then they went into a frenzy. They attacked the scientists fueled by some strange demonic strength. One security guard died from a trauma of a maimed subject ripping his testicles out with his bare hands. 5 soldiers died in this freak incident of unprecedented violence. They tried to sedate the subjects. But their bodies somehow managed to resist the effects of the calming drugs to an astonishing level. Still gnashing and tearing at the cage, even after experiencing a dose of suppressants that would have put down 3 strong men. 2 of the subjects died in the furore, their fragile carcasses finally succumbing to their wounds. As they were finally trussed up and returned to the surgical room, all 3 surviving subjects begged to be kept awake, refusing all anaesthetics and gladly allowing doctors to attempt to patch up the devastating damage to their bodies without any form of painkiller. The first to be operated on died from blood loss. Closer inspection of his body revealed that 9 bones were broken, despite external trauma not accounting for that level of destruction. Doctors realised that his bones had been crushed simply by the extreme force his own muscles had been exerting on his skeleton. The second man had severely damaged vocal cords from hours and hours of screaming, and smiled every time the surgeon applied the scalpel to his skin. Locking his eyes with the operating staff, looking at them with a sick satisfaction. When the doctor stopped his ministrations, the subject became angry, demanding, "Keep cutting." The third simply muttered over and over again, "I must remain awake, I must remain awake." Distressed by the effects of the experiment, but intrigued at their findings, the scientists prepared to return the two surviving subjects to the chamber and expose them again to the gas they craved. One did not make it to the stimulant gas in time and fell asleep. The second, he reached REM sleep. He flatlined and died, despite seeming healthy enough a few moments before. The final surviving subject grew enraged, demanding he be shut in with the gas immediately. He broke free from his restraint and lunged for a soldier's gun, shooting two of the researchers between the eyes, killing them instantaneously. Ranting and raving himself hoarse, he was overpowered by the remaining researchers. The lead scientist turned the gun on the maddened subject, shouting at him in desperation, "What are you? I must know. What are you?" The subject smiled a viperous smile. "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go into the nocturnal heaven where..." The researcher staggered back before desperately shooting the subject through the heart. As the last foul breath shuddered from the subject's body, it spluttered, "So nearly free." Is it just a very spooky story, or is it actually true? Many experiments have been mentioned and talked about over the years, so it wouldn't surprise me if this was actually real. It's pretty disturbing, and sleep experiments definitely have been done many times over the years, and it has been recorded that sleep deprivation can cause almost craziness in someone if it goes on long enough. Who knows what was in the gas that they used? That could have stimulated all parts of the brain. Where they got the superhuman strength from, who knows? Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. If you'd like to see more, subscribe, follow my socials, and I'll keep you updated and posted as and when a new video comes out. Thank you.